Hey, welcome. It's Alexian again with GreenSong's Changemaker series. This is number 7 of 8. I'm your ghost. I'm your ghost. I'm your host, your co-host, Alexian, along with Elspeth, and she'll be along shortly. As always, I'm going to ask the same favor. You know that little share button below? If you would click that, we would be most grateful. Share it with your friends and your family and like-minded, because when you share, that kicks up the algorithm in Facebook and on YouTube and actually presents it as a suggested video to others. As always, Anita is waiting in the background, ready for your interactive comments. So on this video that you're watching down below in Facebook or on YouTube, you can comment. Well, those comments are going to act like a chat room, and anything that you type will actually be fed to us, and Anita has the power to put it right here on the screen. Of course, if you're watching on YouTube, we would love for you to like the video, subscribe, and ring our bell, and that will alert you when other GreenSong videos are being broadcast. There is a auction going on over at greensongfestival.com, as well as the ability to make donations. So if you are of like mind and you're feeling this presentation, please donate, because it'll help us bring you more of these fine educational programs. The auction is of Nybor and Elspeth's artwork, so be sure to go check that out as well. All right, so I am actually lucky enough to get the opportunity tonight to share just a really quick talk about my personal experience getting solar power on my rooftop. Victor, my husband, and I actually got it 3 years ago, and it has been one of the best things that we've ever done. So I've prepared a little short talk. I'm going to actually go into some of the basic stuff. Some of it you may know, some of it you may not know, but I'm also going to share with you some tips and tricks. We did a ton of research on this 3 years ago when we did this, and we found some loopholes that you don't always know about. So this is valuable information I'm getting ready to give you if you're thinking about getting solar power installed on your property. So I'm going to share my screen here. I've created a little slideshow. Let me get that up on the screen for you. Okay, and so away we go. So like I said, 3 years ago, Victor and I decided to invest in solar power. We were 51 at the time, and we were realizing that if we didn't make the leap now, it was going to be too late, because you still have to pay off the loan unless you're blessed to be able to buy it outright. So, you know, on a day-to-day basis, solar energy is raining down on the earth. And it doesn't take very much space in order to create enough electricity to actually power the entire earth and sustain us. But, you know, because of political issues and basic belief systems, solar power has been kind of kept down for many, many years. Well, now things are changing, and they're changing rapidly. And not only is the technology racing forward, but the price is also dropping down fast. Okay, it's even cheaper now than when we did it 3 years ago. But yes, the sun is always shining down upon us. And a lot of people don't realize how big the sun is. They think it's maybe the size of Jupiter, one of those bigger planets or something. No, as this little diagram shows, the sun is huge. It just happens that we're so many millions of miles away from it that, you know, it looks smaller in the sky. So this is the relative size of the planets compared to the sun. I think that's an incredible graphic and really speaks volumes. So one of the things that you want to ask yourself is, can I have solar and where should I install it, right? One of the most amazing little tools that has been made by Google is called Sunroof, and this is free. And that's why I put the link there. It's google.com/sunroof. And using Google Earth, which I'm sure you're aware of, you can look down at satellite photos that have been taken of your house and your neighborhood. They've actually incorporated the data of where the heat signatures of the sun is hitting your rooftop. So it will actually tell you which side of your roof you should install your solar panels on if you choose to go with roof installed panels. There's also other choices besides roof. But real quick, here's a picture of our actual solar array. Actually, that's only one roof side. We actually have it on 3 roofs. This is the front of the house, which faces southeast. We also have another one on the northeast side, but just a few panels. And then we have one on the southwest roof line. And that's a lot of the roof is covered in panels. We actually have an 11.6 kilowatt hour system, which is a pretty moderately big one. It's not huge, but it's big for a residential area. And I'll get into figures as far as money and carbon, footprint in a second. But besides roof mounted systems, there's also ground mounted systems. If you are blessed with land and you don't want to put it on your roof, you can actually install them like this, pointing towards the south where the sun is. As you know, it sinks in the winter and rises from the south every year and gets higher, thus making the days longer and the production better. There's also these new technologies that are coming out, and I've got my eye on this one. It's called the Smart Flower, and it's just so freaking cool. These panels unfold like a fan. They actually are stacked on top of each other like this, and they fold down to get out of weather. And they come up, and then they unfold like a fan. And the coolest part about this system is that it actually tracks the sun. As it moves across the sky, the panels turn and follow the sun. So you're getting an optimal angle on the solar panel throughout the day. I would like to add on to our solar system, and I've got my eye on this one. So when should you install? Well, there's never been a better time to install than now because the government is giving tax credits back. Okay. Now, this PDF was buried on the internet on a government website, and it has a very long URL. So what I did is I made a URL shortening link, bit.ly/Alexian Solar. Okay. I don't work for a solar company. I'm just a customer, and I'm giving you my experience and as many links as I can to help you on your way. So this is bit.ly/Alexian Solar, and it's going to reroute you to this specific government PDF that talks about getting the tax credit on your taxes for installing solar on your property, which is really cool. We got those tax credits, and they are nothing to sneeze at. Okay, so what's happened? I actually did a little measurement, and why should you install solar? Why would you want to install solar? Well, the first reason and the main reason that we chose to do so is to save the planet. Hello, right? Carbon emissions is one of the most dirtiest things, especially coal. And a lot of electrical companies are powered by coal still to this day. So, things are slowly changing. And I know that a lot of wind is coming as well as more solar. But if you go to bit.ly/Alexian Carbon, it will take you to this calculator, and you can actually calculate how much carbon footprint you have negated by having solar. And after these first 3 years, we went live in January of 2018. So 2018, 2019, and 2020, 3 years of solar production. We have actually saved 27.7 metric tons of carbon emission by having our solar panels on our roof. That feels really good. And it gives you kind of some equivalents. It's talking about 60 some thousand miles of cars being driven and all of the carbon coal fires being burnt. But sometimes it's hard to visualize what a metric ton is. Well, here's a visualization for you. This is the size of 1 ton of CO2. That's what 1 ton of CO2 looks like. So, you have to realize it adds up, and it adds up very, very quickly. Okay. Electricity wise, we've produced 39.245 megawatt hours of electricity. That's megawatt. So 39,245 kilowatts. That's a lot. Okay. Now let's talk money. Second reason, save money on your electric bill. Oh my goddess. Okay. So I will admit I'm spoiled. I have Scandinavian blood in me. I get hot easy. I like my air conditioning at 72 to 73 year round. Okay. And that pulls a lot of electricity. Okay. I'm spoiled. We were paying, and I'm not kidding you when I tell you this, in the summer months here in Central Florida, we were paying over $400 a month for electricity in our little 1,800 square foot house. Okay. That's a lot of money. And we paid it all of these years. Okay. We've been together for 27 years now. Right. So, when we got solar and summer hit, our bill dropped to like around $100-ish a month at the peak of summer or less. It was usually under $100 a month. Now, in the winter time, when it's not so hot and we're still in Central Florida, we sometimes pay nothing. We get an electric bill of $10, which is actually the connection fee to stay connected to the grid. It's not even an electrical charge. It's just the connection fee. They're going to get you, right, to up to keep the grid up to date. So this last little screen I'm showing you here is actually a screenshot of my bill from May of this year, 2020, and we only paid $28 for our electric, and the AC was going full blast at 72 to 73 degrees inside. Okay. So again, when you get your solar array, there's some things that you should keep in mind. Okay. And one of the things that we have here in Florida is called net metering. Okay. Net metering is a meter, a special meter they put in on the side of your house. And when you produce more electricity than you consume, it actually pushes that electricity into the grid and your neighbors can use it. Okay. It goes back into the grid. And then on days when you don't produce enough electricity, you pull it back out of the grid. So in a sense, the grid becomes your battery. Okay. So the thing about the way net metering, at least here in Florida, works is it's for a physical year. Okay. The fiscal year. So January through December. So if we have an overage in January, we get a credit and it rolls over to February. If we don't use it and we produce more credit, it just adds up more credit and it rolls over. And then we hit summer and we need more electricity because it's hot and we might eat up that credit. However, if by the end of December 31st, we still have a credit, the electric company has to cut us a check. So we actually get a check instead of a bill. Now, mind you, they're going to pay us wholesale price, not retail price like they would charge us, but at least it's something and we're not having a bill. All right, so what should you look for to buy when you're getting an array? Well, first of all, obviously, the panels themselves. And here's some of the things that you want to keep in mind. You want to look at what is each panel's wattage output, okay, per hour. So they're all rated. And they're all rated in different strengths. So you want to keep that in mind. You also want to look at durability. And usually durability can be measured by looking at the warranty that it comes with. Now, when we got ours, the basic system was warranted for 20 years, which, yes, that's quite a long time for a warranty, 20 years for panels. But we got the upgraded better panel, and it had an extra 5 years. So our panels are actually warranted for 25 years. Another thing that we found out about, now, our roof, because we put it on our roof, our shingles are new as of 2004 because of Hurricane Charlie ripping them off our house. We had a new roof put on. So by 2017, the end of 2017, when the system was installed, it didn't go active till January of 2018, but it was installed in November of 2017. Our roof is kind of middle-aged. So at some point, those panels have to come off the roof for a new roof to put on. Well, that's additional labor. So you want to think ahead. And one of the things that we discovered in our research is that there are these mounting bracket systems for the panels that are snap on, snap off, and they're easier to get the panels to attach and to take off. Now, this also comes in handy if one of the panels goes bad. They can just literally snap it off and snap another one in. The regular way is not so easy. You have to take them apart with screws, and it's a lot more labor. So we actually opted for the easy snap on, snap off rail system so that they could be replaced and taken off in case we need to replace our roof at some point. One of the other things that you, of course, will need is inverters. This is an actual picture of the side of our house, and those two big gray and black devices are the inverters. Now, inverters take the DC or direct current that's coming from the panels and converts it into alternating current, AC power, which is what we use in our house. Some panels come with micro inverters right on the panels themselves, and we actually opted for the large ones that hang on the side of the house. The upside of having the micro inverters is that you can monitor each panel individually, but we were pretty confident that our panels were good and they weren't going to go bad. So we went with the big panel, big inverter on the side of the house. And because our system is 11.6 kilowatts and each inverter is either one of them's 5 kilowatts and one of them 6 kilowatts, we had to get two. Okay. And you'll see that these conduit comes from the soffit of the roof line. That's where the electricity is coming through the attic and out the side of the house into these inverters. Okay. Then from the inverters, it goes to a main breaker. That's just like a breaker in your house where, you have the little switches. Well, there's only 2 switches, one for each inverter. So you can turn each one off and on individually. Then that goes to the main breaker. Now, this is one of those big ka-thunk switches, right? You pull it down and it really is tight and it shuts off the entire system, okay? Which then, after it goes past the main breaker, it goes into the house, okay? And then after it integrates with the house circuitry, then it goes to the net metering, the push-pull. Am I pushing into the grid or am I pulling out of the grid? And if you watch the meter, it's kind of cool because you know how meters count up. If I'm actually pushing into the grid, it slows down and it starts running backwards, which is really cool to watch. I love it when it runs backwards because that means we're producing more electricity than we're actually consuming. Then here's a little thing. This is a law in Florida. If the grid goes down, let's say we have a hurricane or something happens and the grid goes down, well, we have solar power, right? Not that easy. There's a stupid, in my opinion, law on the books that says if the grid goes down, the electric company comes out, switches your entire system off, and locks it with a lock. You have no solar. Does that make sense? Here's the excuse. Well, we're trying to repair the grid and we don't want electricity being fed into the grid. Those electricians might get electrocuted. Don't electricians and linemen work with live wires every day? Yeah, it's kind of a lame excuse to keep solar down. They don't want you not having them connected 100% of the time. So, you know, in my eyes, this little breaker box should come after the house is fed and be put somewhere like over here in the conduit that goes out to the grid. Of course, here in Florida, it's underground. So that's what's connected to the grid. That main breaker in my eyes should be after the house, not before the house. So here's the loophole that we discovered. Do you see those green arrows? Inside our inverter, we have a rotary switch, and it actually diverts the power away from that whole line of flow that I just talked about, and it shunts it straight down into these little power outlets that are marked with the red arrows. So when the system gets disconnected from the grid and our house by that breaker being disengaged, we actually can divert the power into those outlets. And what we have to do is run an electric cord out the window, but we are able to actually power our refrigerator and our freezer and our TV and everything that we want during the daytime when the sun is up through those outlets. So that's a loophole. We had to discover that. Another thing that we were told is if you go over 11.6 kilowatt hours of power, you have to get a, you have to be bonded and licensed to be an electrical company. And you know, you have to get an insurance policy. So it scared us off. Well, another tactic. We found out later that that insurance policy wasn't going to cost that much money. And if we knew how much it would have cost, we would have gotten a bigger system at that time. So like I said, I still want to add on and pay that insurance policy to be an electrical company, even though it's just a house, right? So some other things that you might want to consider. You're going to want a monitoring system. Now, most systems these days come with a monitoring system. And in fact, our inverters there are Wi-Fi enabled. They actually connect to our internet router and they report back to the company and it keeps track. And there's an app for that on your phone and on my iPad. And I can actually pull up how the day went, how the month went, how the year went, and you actually get to see what kind of production you're using. And of course, if you look at this beautiful bell curve, that's what you want. You want the sun to come up, the strength of the power to increase by midday, and then as the sun goes down, it curves back down. Sometimes it's jaggy, and the jagginess is the clouds going over, is what that is. So besides a monitoring system, you might want to consider getting a battery. We are going to invest for sure. This is our very next purchase, is we're going to get a battery. And that way we can store energy in the battery and use it at night. So solar panels only work in the day. So this would help us use the electric that we're producing or overproducing during the evening as well. If you have an electric car, you might want to consider getting a charging portal. And of course, think mitigation. How can I be more energy efficient? Well, one of the things that we did when we got our solar installed is we went right ahead and we increased our insulation in our attic, which really helped keep the heat out and the AC in. I might add too that the panels themselves actually help to mitigate the sun off the roof line, which cools down the house as well. Get new windows. This is something else we're going to do pretty quickly. Get energy efficient windows. And you might consider updating your AC system, which is something we already did. We actually got this specific system. It's Linux and it's solar powered. Now, no, it doesn't pull only solar, but it has one panel attached to it. And the reason we did that is it was another tax credit. And in fact, we got a tax credit not only from the government, but also from the electric company themselves. They gave, they gave us $600 to upgrade our AC to a more efficient system. And then because it had a solar panel attached to it, it counted as a solar system with the government. So it was a little loophole to get some more money back to invest in the solar system itself. Again, you know, it is affected by the seasons as well as the shortest, you know, the shortest and the longest days of the year, as well as weather. I will tell one little quick story. We had a hailstorm a couple months after we got the system, and it freaked me out. I thought, oh my God, my system is going to be just demolished. Well, the hail bounced right off the panels. It didn't even crack them. They're very, very durable. So if that's something you're worried about, don't worry. It is built to withstand hailstorms. Now, how do you get this installed? First and foremost, hire professionals, get a really good company. And we checked out loans. Don't go for a solar loan. They are jacked up in percentage just because it has solar in the name. Money is money. It doesn't matter what label it has on it. So what we did is we took out a second mortgage on our home, and we got a much lower rate because of it. And then we are paying it off, and actually we're paying it off twice as fast. I will say that one of the things that was the best thing we ever did is instead of going straight to a company, we went to a co-op. This is the way, guys. There are co-ops forming all the time, and they form in your state by county. So we found this company. The address again is at the bottom of the screen, solarunitedneighbors.org. And solarunitedneighbors.org helped us shop all the different companies, compare all the ins and outs. A committee is formed, and I actually was on the committee to choose the company. And we ended up with a local company because they had been in business for many, many, many decades, have installed so many panels. They had great prices and great customer service ratings. And so we went with them. But this is the way. Go through a co-op. Why? Well, the system now 3 years ago would have cost us probably in the mid 30,000s. We got it for $28K because we went through a co-op. So I think we got around a 15% to 20% discount. There's nothing to sneeze at, right? So a co-op is definitely the way to go. Okay, I hope you enjoyed my little talk on solar power. I kind of just produced it really quickly and put it together. But it is time to go on to our main speaker and our main performer as well. So I'll be right back with Elspeth.
Hello, everybody. It's Grandmother Elspeth, and I am privileged to present this 7th session of the Changemaker series brought to you by GreenSong. 2 announcements, as usual. Remember the online auction that we have at greensongfestival.com. We're auctioning off even some of Nybor's originals and one of the tarot deck sets, and some of my stuff too. The other thing is there will be a place on the film to donate funds to support our speakers and our musicians. We're part of the reason we're doing this way is everybody's stuck with the virus situation. And we would appreciate any donations that can go to our speakers and our musicians. Today, I want to bring you one of Pete Seeger's quotes that has most impressed me over the years. "O sacred world, now wounded, we pledge to make you free of hate and war and hunger and selfish cruelty. Here we are planting a seed, and we will nurture it. So will it grow in beauty to shame the face of greed." Now, nurture is the operative word, since today our theme is from awareness to action. We have our dreams, we have our thoughts, we have our ideas about how to make the world a better place. But until those are translated into action, they cannot make the change. And remember, we are the change makers. Throughout the Changemaker series, we have been blessed with a fine bunch of speakers. And tonight it is no different. Becky Big Canoe certainly personifies the title of tonight's theme, From Awareness to Action. Becky Big Canoe was born and raised as a member of the Chippewa of Georgina Island in Lake Simcoe, Ontario. She lived in the East Coast as an adult and out in Alberta, where she was for many years a foster parent. After running her own business for 10 years, she closed it down because she saw a real need for decent housing for her people. She went back to school, studied sustainable building design and construction. And even today, she still teaches as much as she does construction. Becky explains, we believe strongly in sustainable building principles and practices and think they would go a long way toward improving education, employment, and housing issues that many First Nations communities face. I built myself a straw bale house back in 1999 and have been living happily in it ever since. Let us welcome Becky Big Canoe.
Greetings, everyone. My name is Becky Big Canoe, and I'm a resident of Canada in Ontario. I actually live on a small island in a little lake called Lake Simcoe, and my people are the Anishinaabe, and we're called Chippewas of Georgina Island. We live here year round now, and Lake Simcoe has been home to Anishinaabe people, Wendat people, Haudenosaunee people. It's a very rich and fertile area of southern Ontario. In recent years, we've begun the process of what we call reclamation, or reclaiming who we are as people, because we had a very dark period from the late 1800s till recently. Our people were subject to being put on reservations, taken to residential school, where we had our language, cultural, and history pretty much erased from us. However, many of our people, our elders, people who got into academics and things like that, we've been studying and reclaiming all of our cultural ways. So that's kind of how what I want to base my talk with you today on about. The overall topic is awareness to activism, which we recognize as being necessary these days because we're finding a lot of times that the institutions and governments aren't responding to what we let them know that we want. And so we have to think about how do we affect change in a society so it more reflects what it is that the people want. So society in general and the Society of Anishinaabe people, I think ultimately really want some of the same basic things. Um, for us, our emphasis is on clean water availability, excuse me, of clean water for our communities, a healthy environment, so that our environment will produce food for us and provide the means for us to raise our children. As we reclaim aspects of our culture, we're learning how to do these things together. And they are very hands-on and very require everyone to take part. So you can see that that would parallel what society needs to look at in terms of being aware of problems and then moving into activism to create the change that we need to see. So best advice from the start of the thinking about it is to find something that really matters to you, something that really ignites your passion, something that's got some discernible change that you think you can affect, or that an endpoint you think should be achieved for that passion, and make sure it's something you really, really care about. In that same vein, it's very important to stay true to your values. And something we've revived amongst our people, and that we try to teach to our children in the school and at home, are something we call the 7 grandfather teachings. The 7 grandfather teachings are courage, wisdom, respect, humility, love, honesty, and truth. And if you think about how you can expand upon each of these, they provide guidance as you are working to effect some change. In a larger society, we do have power where we spend our money, for instance. And so we may make decisions based on what we think is right. Like we may choose at this point in time where we're all at that we support small local business rather than the big box stores, because we are aware that our neighbors are depending on that income. So we'll make a choice like that and shop locally. We may say that different foods are becoming not as available, so we may have to think about how we're going to change our eating habits in the future. Things like meat are very more water intensive in terms of use. And what happens to the water in the industrial agriculture is that it becomes polluted. Water crosses all the barriers, so if it picks up pesticides and herbicides and such, then that will go into the streams and rivers and eventually into the larger bodies of water. So we have to think about how not only changing our eating habits, but thinking about how food is grown and encouraging better policies in terms of what we're allowing to be put on food, or whether food can be genetically modified, and what do we know about the long-term effects of consuming genetically modified food. Right there is something that really needs to be studied. So yeah, it's like our most important task is to be aware that our environment supports us, and how can we be a good friendly neighbor to our environment. Get our kids out into the nature as much as possible, have them interact with natural elements. They can pick flowers and mushrooms and learn about trees, learn about how water systems work in the natural environment. There's so much they can learn. I really would like to see more of the forest school type model being utilized in our society. So yeah, and you look at where you are in life as well, because one of our beliefs is of the different stages of life and the kind of activities that you'll undertake or be a part of according to your age group. For instance, we'll start with the elders and we'll work backwards. But one of the grandparents' most cherished roles is to be the caretakers of the little children. It's it's a very honorable role, because what the grandparents can do is impart to the young ones what is important in our culture. And the main transmission for culture is through language. So they'll be helping to develop the children's language skills as long as they're telling them stories and facts and history about their natural environment. So it's good for the youngsters to be with the grandparents for the first. I think the way I've heard it put is from the time they have their baby teeth until the time those baby teeth start to leave. It's time to be with grandparents as much as possible. This frees up the working age folks, the adults of the community, to work, study, make sure that everything is getting done without the little ones underfoot. And then the teenagers, there's many teachings and guidelines for teenagers, because they're the exploring people, and we describe their life as being fast, and they want to move and explore and do a lot of different things. So this is when they start to put a lot of attention on whatever their own personal dream in life is. And in our traditional life ways, young people are put out on a fast, a vision quest, you might call it, where they're left alone and they don't have food or water, and they just really have to learn how to face themselves, face difficulty, spend time with their own spirit so they know what it is they're really going to be drawn towards in life. So that's an important stage of a development of a human. And prior to that, being a child is hanging out with the grandparents, learning basic skills, how to handle tools, different things like that. So it's fairly simple. So with the topic or theme being awareness to action, we have a graph of 3 overlapping circles, and they are labeled culture, trends, and societal issues. And where they meet is at relevance and responsibility. So we're all going to find ourselves somewhere inside that circle, and to look for what is it that's happening inside there that's relevant to me. What am I responsible for? So you have to kind of look at those questions first. In my own case, one of the issues that was very important to me was the issue that we have both in Canada and the United States. We call it missing and murdered Indigenous women and children. And when I first started getting involved in 2013, the numbers were horrific. They were approaching like 4,000 incomplete investigations into murdered and missing Indigenous women. So I thought, well, I need to get involved in this. This is very important. The government just isn't looking at it. So what I did was I sought out someone who had a high profile in the issue, and I contacted her over my computer and introduced myself, and I told her I really want to help until the point where the government is taking notice. So we initiated a national walk where we were going to let people know that we're coming, and we'd speak at communities and we'd be walking along the highways. So we did that in 2013, and then after our federal election in 2015, the Prime Minister, one of the first things he did was announce that he was going to convene a national inquiry into what was happening. So You can sometimes get really, really definite markers of your success at trying to highlight an issue. Sometimes the effect is a little more subtle. Um, I've also been a defender of our water here at Lake Simcoe. I I did water walks around Lake Simcoe 4 times, and I led groups of people, and we did ceremony all the way around. Like each walk took 7 to 10 days to complete, and each day we would walk carrying a pail of water and our Eagle staff, and we would pray that Lake Simcoe's waters would be healthy into future generations. Um, our marker is 7 generations forward, 7 generations back. So we see ourselves on a continuum of people who are going to occupy the planet. And so it's our responsibility to ensure that the environment that we were privileged to share or to enjoy is something we can share with future generations. And then we have a list of suggestions of things that we can actually initiate in order to engage in activism. We've got volunteering on a list, letter writing, making petitions, delivering speeches. There's the lobbying. Lobbying, I know, doesn't really have a great name. It seems like it's used by corporations more than citizens. Consumer boycotts have always been pretty effective. Once again, knowing where you're spending your money and who it supports is very important. And economic sanctions are sometimes in the extreme, but sometimes they work very well. Lately, we've been seeing a lot of demonstrations and protests going on. Create or attend a conference. Thank you, Tracy, and everyone else for creating this one. And do some video. And finally, go out and be disobedient. Disobedient to the rules. Educating others is the most important thing. And with that, you can just share conversations with people. And in these polarized days, I know sometimes that's a little difficult because we are divided on many issues, and many issues can make it into a single conversation. So allow a lot of space for others to have their opinions. What we don't want is to get into conflict right away and just choose to stop talking to one another, because then we're not going to get anything done. Nothing's going to change. So one of the things I when I was thinking about engaging with people today was I wanted to bring forward a message about love. I think that one is one that we don't get enough teachings in, because there's certain perceptions about love that we're given as kids. It's in movies and TV and everything else. And it's mostly about romantic love. Very much important, but it's not the only kind. And I was talking earlier about how grandparents spend the time with the little ones in order to convey the culture and teach them the language. But the most important thing, I think, is teaching the little ones about love. Unconditional love, lots of affection, physical cuddling and stuff like that, encouragement. They are our future. So it's most important to feed them with the good things they're going to need in life. And it has to counter to the fear, the anger, the judgment, the discrimination that we all so far have been facing. I just want to talk a little bit about the privilege of being a grandmother. I have two young fellas and a little girl that are my grandchildren. And I just find that I want them to have the very best of our culture, the very best of our life ways available to them as they grow. Because I think that it's them that will expand upon these things. But you find when you become a grandparent and a grandmother especially, is you're concerned about the well-being of the little ones. The girls, especially, they have to grow up in a world, in a society that has turned female body into very much of a commodity. And I don't really want to jive with that. So we tell our little ones how sacred they are, how sacred their bodies are, how much they need to honor and respect themselves. So it's a bit of a, like, it doesn't jive with what they see. So it's really, really important for us to work extra harder to give them a grounding in who they are when they're small, and explain to them the difference. So, like, I think our roles as grandmothers is so important in helping them to avoid the pitfalls. Um, the human trafficking is a very big issue in our area. So we want them to avoid that. And that means knowing how to be safe. So we won't have to continue with asking the government, why are there so many of us being murdered or missing and nobody's doing anything about it? So that's what our grandmother role is to help our youngsters navigate the world. They really have a lot of challenges ahead of them. And if we want to be developing a better society out of our work, our activism, then we have to include our children. They need to be brought along and taught the things that we have to teach them. So that's really, really important to me as well. We can teach them things like the moon cycles, and we could have a monthly moon ceremony. We acknowledge when our young fellas are old enough to be fire keepers and give them all the teachings as to how to be a fire keeper, how to be a community helper, how to provide for the old people, all these things that are just basic to living life together. Another story that I'd like to tell you that really, really struck me as being a beautiful example of someone taking their awareness of a problem to the action that it took to bring about a change. And it's a story about a man who was achieving fame as like the world's best harmonica player. He came from a town in Ontario called Sarnia. And he was on a tour doing, they were doing shows for some of the army guys. They were down in the east coast of Canada. And he heard about these little communities. One's called Davis Inlet, another one's called Sheshashi, where the Innu people live. So he was arranged a ride up to this little village of Sheshashi. And when he got out of the vehicle, first thing he saw was a group of teenagers, and they had bags of gasoline attached to their faces. And they were laughing and they were dopey and everything. And he was just blown away by the sight of that. He was just like, what is going on here? So he proceeded to take out his harmonicas and show them some tunes and stuff like that. But because of that, he was moved so much that they filmed that little piece. And then he was talking to our national public radio, CBC, and he was talking about what he saw, and it just blew him away that this was Canada. So eventually he returned to their community, and he started a charity called Arts Can Circle. And what he had was his friends to donate used unwanted musical instruments. And before he knew it, he was just overloaded with all these musical instruments, and he had to get them up to these communities. So everything I'm telling you is detailed in a little video called A Walk in My Dream. And it's been 15 years now, and Arts Can Circle regularly visits our remote and northern communities, and they bring the kids musical instruments, but they're also bringing them recording equipment and all the things that they would need to create their own productions. So to me, that is one awesome success story. And I believe we're providing a link for that video in our description box below. So if you have an hour or something, you'd like to check it out, a very inspiring story, take that one in. Like in doing the work of activism, it's really important to like look at your own strengths and weaknesses, and what are you good at doing and contributing, so that you're not like wasting your time or whatever. There's different kinds of people in activism, and it says no one can do everything, but everyone can do something. As part of a growing movement of people across the world who want to end extreme poverty and tackle climate chaos, all kinds of activists are needed. Which kind of activist for a better world might you be? We have a citizen, describes a vision of the good society, is trusted by others, able and willing to defend the movement against criticism from those in power, and supports a nonviolent approach. And then we have the rebel, who will draw attention to an issue, maybe by blocking a road or something like that. Represents society's moral vanguard in the gap between what is and what should be, and leads in the takeoff phase of a social movement when trigger events gains mass attention for the movement. So we've seen some of that occur in this past year. Whereas the social change agent nurtures agreement in the community, continuously learns through dialogue, promotes alternatives and educates, convinces and involves majority of ordinary citizens and whole society in change. And then finally, we have the reformer, who can promote major reforms in negotiations with the system to get movement goals, values, and alternatives adopted into official laws. Official laws, policies, and conventional wisdom through lobbying, lawsuits, referenda, official rallies, in corporate practice, local authorities, candidates, etc. So there's a lot of examples of the different kind of activism, and it's all needed all the way around. Okay, so when we're thinking about social change, societal change, there are at least 10 different reference points that we can look at in order to know that we're covering the bases and keeping ourselves on track. And I was shared a really cute graphic here. It's called the 10 Commitments. And then they're on a wheel, which is really cool. And the first one that my eye's drawn to is empathy, because it's got a little heart in it. And so we practice empathy by trying to put ourselves in someone else's shoes. Next on the wheel, going clockwise, is critical thinking. And so I guess the point is here is we must learn to discern between what's true and what may be propagandized for our benefit. So think hard about what the issue is, and try to get as much information as you can and incorporate that into what you say about the issue. Ethical development, and that is represented by a justice scale. Our ethics are informed by our values, and earlier I talked about our 7 grandfather teachings, which are the values that we want to impart to our children. So that, to me, is what ethical development is about. And then bringing that to the larger society as a model. Peace and social justice is just so very important, because without justice, there won't be peace. And that's been said many times. Service and participation is about getting in there and getting your hands dirty. Make sure you've carefully considered what your part to play is, so that that fits you. Promoting altruism. My definition, my understanding of that word is it's to give without condition. Humility is maintain yourself as a being equal to all others on the planet. Environmentalism, yeah, we must always maintain a good environment. Global awareness is something I think we're all really engaging in, hopefully, at this point in time, because we're all going through something together, and it's affecting different people in different ways, but we can see our commonalities through this global awareness of things. And finally, the last one I see on this wheel is responsibility. And that one resonates for me a lot, because that's one of the foundations of Anishinaabe teachings about how to be a good human being. We generally tend to think in our relationship to the environment and other people less about our rights and more about our responsibilities as people. And so that, depending on where you are in your life stages, you have different responsibilities, but it's that's most important. So it's been really nice taking part. This is my first time taking part in an online festival. I really am enjoying it and taking part in some of the other things that are going on. And it's just really nice to be with everybody. Thank you. And of course, we have all kinds of singers and dancers who are out there spreading messages and encouraging people to change their behavior, to get involved, to be an upstander rather than a bystander. And in the tradition of Joan Baez and Pete Seeger and Woody and Arlo Guthrie, Bob Dylan, these guys changed the world with music. And we have a great little duo coming up after this portion. They're known as Magpie, and they've been around and want to do some entertaining with you and some awareness raising. So enjoy them.
Thank you, Becky. You've given us an excellent example. May each of us find a way to shift our awareness of a problem and take action. I want to talk just a little bit about action. We all want to do something, or maybe we all don't, but the people that I know want to do something to change the face of the world that we are in. Remember, you are as vital as anyone else. If you don't have the education you need, maybe you need to get it. If you don't have the knowledge, find it. Decide what you're going to do with your energy to change the world. That's all we are. We came here to change the world, and so we are doing it. Let me tell you about our musical guests. When I first contacted Magpie to be part of GreenSong 2013, they said to me, "We have been making music for the earth for 40 years. 7 years later, they still are. Since 1973, Terry Leonin and Greg Artzner have brought their unique sound and remarkable versatility to contemporary and stirring original compositions. Award-winning artists, singers, songwriters, musical historians, actors, and social activists. Pete Seeger called them the links in the chain of music. Music shifts perspective, dedicating their lives and their music to leaving this world a better place. In 2013, I had the privilege of observing them as they worked with a school class, one of the towns close to us here in West Virginia. And they were working with a class to write a new song. That's a lot of what they do, is work with young people to teach them the power of music. We will all be able to benefit from this at this point. And we welcome Magpie.
And this is in celebration of the GreenSong Festival and Elspeth, of course, in her 90th birthday.
There stands a misty mountain in the soft and gentle rain, against the flight of endless time, forever to remain. Through all the passing seasons, through every night and day, I can see that misty mountain, and I feel the Spirit say, oh, brother, don't you weep. Oh, brother, don't you weep no more. Sun's gonna shine on a golden shore. Oh, brother, don't you weep. Oh, sister, don't you weep. Oh, sister, don't you weep no more. Sun's gonna shine on a golden shore. Oh, sister, don't you weep. Down the rocky roads of trouble, up the twisted paths of pain. Sometimes it is a struggle, sometimes we come up lame. But with children on our shoulders, we face another day. And through their shining eyes of innocence, I can feel the children say, oh, Father, don't you weep. Oh, Father, don't you weep no more. Sun's gonna shine on a golden shore. Oh, Father, don't you weep. Oh, Mother, don't you weep. Oh, Mother, don't you weep no more. Sun's gonna shine on a golden shore. Oh, Mother, don't you weep. When there's music all around you and you just can't seem to hear, when the answer's just around the bend but it never shows up clear, and when there's darkness right above you, it's hard to know and understand, but there's a heart out there that loves you, and there's a promise in your hand. Oh, people, don't you weep. Oh, people, don't you weep no more. Sun's gonna shine on a golden shore. Oh, people, don't you weep. Oh, people, don't you weep. Oh, people, don't you weep no more. Sun's gonna shine on a golden shore. Oh, people, don't you weep. There stands a misty mountain in the soft and gentle rain, against the light of endless time, forever to remain. Through all the passing seasons, through every night and day, I can see that misty mountain, and I feel the Spirit say, oh, brother, don't you weep. Oh, brother, don't you weep no more. Sun's gonna shine on a golden shore. Oh, brother, don't you weep. Oh, sister, don't you weep. Oh, sister, don't you weep no more. Sun's gonna shine on a golden shore. Oh, sister, don't you weep. Sun's gonna shine on a golden shore. Oh, sister, don't you weep. Down to Brazil and the rainforest beauty to get my fill. But what I saw made my heart so sad, for what the people were doing was all so bad. They were flooding the valleys, making a jam for a big hydroelectric dam, killing all the trees and the animals there, taking out the green things that make our air. I looked up to the sky and there I saw the beating wings of a great red macaw, and I said, fly, Fly above the treetops so high. Fly until you find your home. When I followed that bird where it did go, and it took me all the way down to Borneo. There we found just more of the same, only this time it was the logging game. For many people were up to no good, making their fortunes on exotic wood. They don't care what might be in their way, while there are animals and people dying every day. My feathered friend said that's just ain't right, but I pulled the cork and I'd stay and fight. You had to fly way up in the sky. Around this world you're bound to roam. Fly above the treetops so high. Fly until you find your home. On beating wings did that parrot roam, turned across the raging ocean foam. It landed on Central America's shore, in a little nation called El Salvador. From the Panama Canal to the Little Belize, there were cattle grazing where there once were trees, and the beef from the cattle is taken away, sold for hamburgers in the USA. My partner said something's got to give. This dying land is no place to live. I've gotta fly way up in the sky. Around this world you're bound to roam. Fly above the treetops so high. Fly until you find your home. From Africa to China to the Philippines, the stream of the rabbits strip the forests clean. All along the equator, all around the earth. So many people don't know what it's worth. They gotta stop this killing before it's too late. For without a rainforest, earth might suffocate. The birds and the trees cannot make a fuss. You know they all depend on us. We need air to breathe, you know it's nature's law. Without it, neither us nor the overpaw can fly way up in the sky. Around this world you're bound to roam. Fly above the treetops so high. Fly until you find your home. Until you find your home. Until you find your home.
So back around those same days, those same years, 1990, we wrote this song, and we named it Amarok, which is the Inuit name for the spirit wolf. And the wolf is considered to be the great teacher of the animal world. And if the human beings just open their eyes and their ears and their minds and learn to listen to them and learn what the wolf has to teach us. So this is our song about the wolves.
And was used to save the wolves in Yellowstone National Park, and they're still under siege. So let's help those wolves out.
Brother Wolf, great teacher, teach us well your ways. We may come to honor our Mother Earth in beauty all our days. Show us the path that you know so well. Together we'll set forth on the ancient way of honor. We'll follow you into the north. Sister Wolf Pathfinder, their timbers grow so tall, with the full moon for an ally, the mountains ring the echo of your call. Show us the path that you know so well. Together we'll set forth on the ancient way of honor. Follow you into the north. Mother Wolf Protector, gather to your side, in nurturing and growing, in learning and in knowing to abide. Show us the path that you know so well. Together we'll set forth on the ancient way of honor. I'll follow you into the north. Father Wolf in moonlight, sing into the sky. From the southern star to darkness, let your ancient prayers sail on high. Show us the path that you know so well. Together we'll set forth on the ancient way of honor. Follow you into the north.
Well, one of our heroes,
We have heroes and
we
sheroes.
have lots of heroes and sheroes, and one of our major heroes is the late Pete Seeger. And Pete virtually invented this genre of song.
He was one of the first environmental songwriters.
He was, and in the 1960s, he
awoke
a lot of people,
a lot.
and in the late 60s, he and a group of friends and neighbors who in the southern Hudson River Valley where he lives,
And where we live.
they pulled together and they envisioned and they created Hudson River Sloop Clearwater, which has been the environmental flagship of the Hudson River Valley for over 50 years now. And this song that we're going to sing for you is one of the first songs that Pete wrote about the Hudson. And this is the song that he sang on Hudson's first tour when they stopped in all the little river towns and set up little festivals for people to come and sing. And this was the song.
Learn about the river.
Yeah. So it's called Sailing Up My Dirty Stream.
Sailing up my dirty stream, still I love it, and I'll keep the dream that someday, though maybe not this year, my Hudson River will once again run clear. She starts high in the mountains of the north, crystal clear and icy trickles pour. Just a few floating wrappers of chilling dawn, dropped by some hikers to warn of things to come. Atlas wolves, 5,000 honest hands, forget the consolidated paper plan. 5 million gallons of waste a day. Why should we do it any other way?
Down your alley, 1 million toilet chains.
Find my Hudson so convenient a place to drain.
And each little city
Says who me? Do you think that sewage plants run free? Out in the ocean, they say the water's clear. Not we live on the river here. Halfway between the mountains and the sea, tacky to grow, this thought turns to me.
sailing up my dirty stream.
Still I love it,
And I'll keep the dream that someday, or maybe not this year, my Hudson River will once again run clear. Sailing up my dirty stream, still I love it and I'll dream that someday, though maybe not this year, my Hudson River and my country will run clear.
Thank you, Pete.
A few years ago now, these words were ubiquitous all over the country in the media. The words "water is life." In Lakota, that is Mniwichoni. Mniwichoni means water is life. Well, years ago, Terry and I were
Working to stop a little thing called fracking, which was
fracking.
not even front page news in the early 90s. And it was affecting, of course, the Dene, the Navajo. And so the elders came to town and we had dinner with them and they inspired this song.
Mother Ocean nourishes me Mother Ocean nourishes me at full moonlight tide at the edge of the sea. Water is life. Water is life. Mother Ocean nourishes me at full moonlight tide at the edge of the sea. Water is life. Water is life. Mother Ocean nourishes me at full moonlight tide at the edge of the sea. Water is life. Water is life. Standing on this rocky shore, something holds my eye. On that perfect far distant line, where water meets the sky. I don't need a mighty ship sailing across the sea. 4 fathoms deep within I know. What do you mean to me? Mother Ocean nourishes me at full moonlight tide at the edge of the sea. Water is life. Water is life. Mother Ocean nourishes me at full moonlight tide at the edge of the sea. Water is life. Water is life. Out on the wide Pacific under the sun's relentless flow, the water rise up to the skies, where western winds will blow. Those clouds and shroud like mountain top feed the forest with their rain, then run down to the rivers and back home to you again. Mother Ocean nourishes me at full moonlight tide at the edge of the sea. Water is life. Water is life. Mother Ocean nourishes me at full moonlight tide at the edge of the sea. Water is life. Water is life. I'm gonna lay my body down on the salt sea sand and let the waves wash over me, foam running through my hand. Mother Ocean nourishes me at full moonlight tide at the edge of the sea. Water is life. Water is life. Mother Ocean nourishes me at full moonlight tide at the edge of the sea. Water is life. Water is life. Everything I am, everything I need. I know it's true, it comes from you. Water is the seed, little Mother Ocean. In a universe so wide, we've got to rise up like the moon and try to turn the tide. Mother Ocean nourishes me in full moonlight tide at the edge of the sea. Water is life. Water is life. Mother Ocean nourishes me at the edge of the sea. Water is life. Mother Ocean nourishes me in full moonlight tide at the edge of the sea. Water is life. Water, oh, water is life. Mother Ocean nourishes me at full moonlight tide at the edge of the sea. Water is life. 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 Water is life.
our major shiro.
How'd you know I was going to say that? We have a lot of major sheroes. One of the most impacting and generous and brilliant and poetic and important marine biologist on the planet was a woman named Rachel Carson. And we wrote 2 songs about her because we just love her so much. And she faced a lot to tell all of us about DDT, and that was only one of the many pesticides that we're all dealing with now. So here's her song, because, you know, sometimes you can be a warrior, but sometimes the way you can be a warrior the best is to be a gentle warrior.
Wonder of their winged journey northward every year, bringing back their music to the birth of springtime here. Thousands of miles over land and over sea, the circle is unbroken, forever wild and free. Just one part of the tapestry that we stand to lose, sacrifice for our comfort up to us to choose. One woman stood before the world with chilling words to say, a gentle urgent warning, find a better way. Oh, gentle warrior, gentle warrior for the earth, walk beside me, walk beside me. She stood with quiet dignity as a firestorm swirled around, facing the accusers who tried to bring her down. But soon her words of prophecy were known the whole world wide. Her vision for the earth would cause the turning of the tide. Oh, gentle warrior, gentle warrior for the earth, walk beside me, walk beside me. And when they tried to silence her, they tried to smear her name. Scientists of industry had to cover up their shame. Now down on the rocky coastline, where the salt winds damp and cool, where there's a miracle of the web of life in every tidal pool. Whenever you hear a veery or threshing out its song, the soul of Rachel Carson is there singing along. Oh, gentle warrior for the earth, walk beside me, walk beside me. The wonder of their winged journey northward every year, bringing back their music to the birth of springtime here. Thousands of miles over land and over sea, the circle is unbroken, forever wild and free. Oh, gentle warrior for the earth, walk beside me, walk beside me, walk beside me, walk beside me.
Well, there is an organization called Oil Change International. They're an NGO that has been working for many years now, trying to break the corrupting grip of oil profit money on governments around the world. And we wrote this song for them. It's called Follow the Money.
And it's got a great chorus, so dance or sing or
feel free to join in.
Sing along. Here we go.
Follow the money from the oil can, from Iraq, from Nigeria, to Kazakhstan. Follow the money from the tanker boats to the halls of Congress where it buys the votes. Follow the money till it makes you sick and you slip and you slide on the thick oil slick. Follow the money. Follow the money. Our addiction to oil is at the core. Guzzling, guzzling more and more. The human drilling to the ends of the earth. How many barrels is a human life worth? How long will it take for us to see? Somebody owns the powers that be. Follow the money. Follow the money. So follow the money from the oil can, from Iraq, Nigeria, Kazakhstan. Follow the money from the tanker boats, the halls of Congress where it buys the votes. Follow the money till it makes you sick and you slip and you slide on the thick oil slick. Follow the money. Follow the money. Which politicians stand to gain with their oil money in their campaign? They give them big tax breaks, subsidies. Our pockets are empty and we're on our knees. BP and Halliburton don't have to comply. They got the very best Congress oil money can buy. Follow the money. Follow the money. Yeah, follow the money from the oil can, from Iraq, Nigeria, to Kazakhstan. Follow the money from the tanker boats to the halls of Congress where it buys the most. Follow the money from where it's spent right to the office of the president. Follow the money. Follow the money. When the people of the world are gonna have our say, it's time for all nations to rearrange. It's time for a global oil change to save this planet. It's not too late. It's time for separation of oil and state. Follow the money. Follow the money. Yeah, follow the money to solar power, free energy every day, night hour. Follow the money, the power that's green, and we don't need the oil dollar machine. Follow the money from the halls of state, from the power of oil, gotta separate. Follow the money. Follow the money. Follow the money from the oil can, from the right Nigeria to Kazakhstan. Follow the money from the tanker boats to the halls of Congress where it buys the votes. Follow the money till it makes you sick and you slip and you slide on the big oil slip. Follow the money. Follow the money. Follow the money. Follow the money. another day to live the hope, no longer running blind. I've seen storm clouds coming, I've felt the cold hard rain, but when loving friends stand by me, I can rise up once again. I can rise up once again. I stand before the morning sun, land bathed in your light, sparkling rivers and high mountains, on birds wing, my heart takes flight. I lend a hand to all I can, try to make this world a better place. See all its my relations beyond the human race, beyond the human race. I stand before that morning sun in a land of promise born, lives of stolen power I do behold with scorn. I vow to no master if I false piety. My faith is in the living earth, that each day gives birth to me, each day gives birth to me. We stand before the morning sun, with others hand in hand. Our journey now has just begun. At the crossroads now we stand, turning away from fool's treasure, each one to do our part. We find the wealth that matters is in each other's heart, is in each other's heart. Oh, devil time, I'm gonna fool you now. Oh, devil time, you like to bring me down. But when I'm feeling low, my lovers gather round, help me rise to fight you one more time. Oh, devil fear, you with your icy hands. Oh, devil fear, you'd like to freeze me cold. But when I'm so afraid, my lovers gather round, help me rise to fight you one more time.
pain. You often pinned me down. You thought I'd cry and beg you for the end. But at that very time, my lovers gathered round, help me rise to fight you one more time. Oh, devil hate, I knew you long ago, till I found out the poison in your breath. Now when we hear your lies, my lovers gather round, help me rise to fight you one more time. No storm or fire can ever beat us down. No wind that blows but carries us further on. And you hear, oh, lovers gather round. We can rise and sing it one more time. No storm or fire can ever beat us down. No wind that blows but carries us further on. And you oh, lovers gather round. We can rise and sing it one more time.
Thanks again, Pete.
Wow. Terry and Greg, you have once again carried us away on the wings of song. The only thing I miss is the sing-alongs. Magpie, like Pete Seeger and Harry Belafonte, encourage their audiences to be part of the music, incorporating everybody into one voice. And I'd like to talk a little about the power of music and what it does for a group of people. Music, like any art form, is a conversation. It's what's happening between the musicians and the audience. And I have talked to a number of my musical friends who say an audience that just sits there and stares doesn't feed back the energy, so that they're having to push it out. But if they can get everybody singing, and unfortunately the last 25 years or so, bands have come up and all they do is play loud music. Sorry, that's my particular prejudice, but I don't hear anything about the music affecting the people except to get excited. But music properly done, using all of its powers, can shift the perspective. I think about in the 60s and 70s. Yes, I was very much mature at that point and was not a hippie. I was way too old to be a hippie, but my children were. And we recognized, as most people did in that day, the power of music to take you somewhere, to do something, to bring the group together, and to help us understand each other. There were activists of all sorts then, and they played music and offered music that would help people change things. I do want to, before I leave you, remind you once again of the auction, but more primarily at this point of the power of the donating button. Give what you can to work with our musicians and our speakers. We're all in this together, and you are a part of what is happening. Remember, we all have the power to change things. Thank you.
Something's got to give. The sky and land is no place to live. I've got to fly way up in the sky. Around this world you're bound to roam. Fly above the treetops so high. Fly until you find your home. From Africa to China to the Philippines, greedy money grabbers strip the forests clean all along the equator, all around